Bolton needed some cash. So, of course, hold that concentration camp thing. Hold it until we can put it in the book. Very brave, John Bolton. John Bolton, John's probably upset because we haven't gone to war with 67 countries yet under the Trump administration. Bolton never saw a war zone he didn't like or didn't want to. But Bolton wants to bomb everyone. I live in Martin County. I'm concerned that Bolton may want to bomb Martin County, Florida at some point. I'm like, do we have an air raid siren? John Bolton said that. Bolton likes to bomb. There's never been a war anywhere on planet Earth that Bolton didn't support getting us into. Bolton's not a war hawk. He's like a war predator drone that shoots the war hawk out of the sky because he's not war hawky enough. There's no war on planet Earth Bolton didn't like. Listen, to be fair, though, seriously, why the president hired this guy, I have no idea. Really, he's been on the wrong side of just about every foreign policy issue in the history of foreign policy. So Bolton now wrote this book, hilariously called In the Room, as if he was in the room for the conversation, because many of the conversations he cites in his book, Joe, were ones he wasn't in the room for. It's just amazing. That's incredible. That's really bizarre. John Bolton in the room. Were you actually in the room for that? No, another dude was. So is your book titled Another Dude in the Room? Or are you in the room? Who in the room are we talking about? So Bolton, who's a discredited hack and generally just a life loser, who again will bomb any country with a name. And if not, he'll make up the name and make it a country himself and bomb that too. Bolton's quite upset. So he wrote this book because he's a grifter and he wants a cheap payday. And it's trashing Trump, the whole book. That's fascinating because hat tip Dan Scavino, I saw this on his Twitter feed. Here's a video, a 1-minute montage of John Bolton saying just the nicest things about President Trump when this job was involved, when he was getting a paycheck. Here's Johnny B. Check him out.
President Trump accomplished what other leaders have repeatedly promised but consistently failed to deliver.
He looks out after the best interest of the American people. They're the ones who elected him. They're the ones he's responsible to.
And his administration will deliver, I am confident.
He's not going to make the same mistakes that President Obama made. And I think one thing you can be sure of is President Trump's not going to make the mistakes of prior administrations here.
I think the president's doing exactly the right thing.
The president correctly understands when China gets economic power by stealing from the United States and others, it's time to call a stop to it. Well, I think the Trump administration has been very tough. It has imposed enormous sanctions on Russia.
Since January 2017, the president has taken decisive action to defend our election systems from meddling and interference.
I think the president's right on the policy here.
Well, I think he's got another year of accomplishments under his.
I just want to note, disclaimer, no bombs were discharged during the playing of that video. Bolton may bomb my house after this show. I don't have any bomb protection on my home. It's hurricane resistant. It is not bomb protected. I'm worried. Thank God this guy's nowhere near any bombing materials at this point. This guy is he's disgraced himself so repeatedly on foreign policy issues and international interventions that he still is allowed anywhere near government. Honestly, was a failure of the Trump administration. There's no getting around that. Captain Mustache here. He's not even like a war hawk. He's like a war tyrannosaurus. Everywhere. Loves wars. So there's him praising Trump, of course. But he does level some serious charges in the book. Well, they're worth entertaining. No, they are. I mean, listen, we shouldn't just ignore it. But it's quite bizarre. One of the most serious charge in his book, I think, is that at some point, Trump told Chinese President Xi that the concentration camps were like, that they put the Uyghurs in, were like A-OK. Hey, Mr. President, go ahead and build those concentration camps. Not kidding. I'm not being hyperbolic. This is an actual charge in the book. But fascinatingly enough, again, Bolton, whose book title I think is In the Room, didn't actually hear the president say that. He got it from a guy who translated it from another guy, apparently. Check this out from the Wall Street Journal. This is interesting on that allegation, which is serious. He says, at the opening dinner of the Osaka summit, with only interpreters present, Xi had explained to Trump why he was building concentration camps. According to our interpreter, Bolton states. Trump said that Xi should go back with building the camps, which Trump thought was exactly the right thing to do. Interesting. So Bolton, who claims to be in the room, is actually getting it from someone else who was an interpreter, who heard someone else say it, Trump. That's fascinating. Again, I don't dismiss. I'm not a liberal. I'm interested in actual news. It'd be a serious charge. There's no question about it. Here's the problem with that. Anyone familiar with foreign policy who's followed the China situation, as I do, I have to. I comment on it on the news all the time. Joe, President Xi from China has never admitted to having concentration camps. Kind of a problem, no? They're there. They're very real. The Uyghurs are definitely suffering in those concentration camps. I've spoken about it on this show. They're grotesque abuses of human rights at the highest level. They are definitely there. Xi's never acknowledged them. He calls them by these ridiculous names like re-education communities and other, Soviet-style Pravda efforts. So you're suggesting to me, Bolton, who says he heard it from someone else who heard it from Trump. Again, I thought he was in the room. That President Xi, who's never acknowledged the existence of these camps at all, just randomly blurted it out. And then President Trump said, that's a great idea. Folks, the story sounds ridiculous. Ridiculous. And by the way, if the story was true, and I was in the administration, I mean, Joe, wouldn't you go to the media right away? That's a disturbing story. Why not go to the media right away? Right away. Well, wait. Oh, no, Joe. I had to get it in my book first. Hold on. Let me go to Amazon, pick up a copy. He's a fraud, folks. This guy's a fraud. You're suggesting the President of the United States supports concentration camps in China, and you held it until you could put it in your book. Just checking on that. Despite the fact that the Chinese president's never admitted to having concentration camps, and you didn't actually hear it. You heard it from a guy who heard it from someone else. I think we can discard that. Here's another interesting take from the New York Times. Remember, no bombs have been discharged during the recording of this podcast episode. If Bolton was here, I don't know what would have happened. Bolton, who loves every war everywhere, wants to bomb everyone all the time, Joe. Now we know why Bolton was really motivated here. Look at the New York Times. Has an interesting snippet from this piece here. It says, New York Times, Bolton seems incensed at the unexpected display of caution and humanity on the part of Trump, deeming it the most irrational thing I've ever witnessed any president do. What are they talking about? They were talking about that episode where President Trump at the last minute turned around and did not change his mind, did not want to bomb the Iranians for that Predator drone incident because he felt like too many Iranian civilians would be killed. Again, Bolton, who can't get enough of the bombings, let the bombings commence, was very upset that President Trump didn't, in fact, unleash the bombs he wanted. Now we know what's really motivating this guy. He hates Trump. He wants Trump to bomb everybody all the time, everywhere. Everyone, all the time. He wants them to bomb the Chazylvania, or Chopistan, or what is it, Chop now? Chopylvania, Chopilstania. He wants them to bomb them too, probably. The guy loves bombs. He's upset we didn't bomb the Iranians. He hasn't mentioned the taking out of Soleimani, which happened afterwards, of course. He probably left out of his book, but that's a whole other thing. Bolton needed some cash. So, of course, hold that concentration camp thing. Hold it until we can put it in the book. Very brave, John Bolton.
You just heard Dan Bongino.